Now, if I show you something with a microscope and it wiggles, then at least you believe you saw something that wiggles.
Mm-hmm.
But if I show you something wrong with a little nuclear thing and I say that's life, you have to take my word for it, because I'm educated, or your own word, because you saw the book. But you're not sure. You're really not sure. You may. So what constitutes proof then? Proof is, what I'm really trying to tell you is proof is in the eye of the beholder too. It is proof to one person, it may not be proof to another person. Depends upon our experience.
Well, see, from talking to the scientists, okay,
We seem to be, I can just imagine, we seem to be all wishy-washy about it. We're not sure. Well, that's in fact, we're getting it on us.
okay, and this is, but you see, there, and I understand the jeopardy that you people are in. Okay,
We're not in jeopardy, we're confused. Why do you say we're in jeopardy?
Because I think the impression that I get in speaking to these people is that they would like to say to me, I believe we've got life on Mars, but I don't think we're going to be able to prove it. And I don't think we're going to be able to prove it because when all the courses of these experiments have run, all of this is over, we're still going to be staring at a form of life that eats, grows, farts, but doesn't shit, doesn't leave any waste behind. And we don't know of anything on Earth that functions that way. And we cannot, in our laboratories here on Earth, by replication, duplication, simulation, and any other way, come up with a microbody that functions that way. We can speculate as to what form it would take, but we cannot prove it. And I, as the individual scientist, am not going to go out on a limb and say that there's life on Mars. All I can say is that there's evidence.
There's no question that you've got an interesting thought. And what may have not come out, in fact, you just stimulated me to think about something. When you try to distinguish between my thoughts about life and biology, I really don't have any. But why did that come up? There's always something behind everything somebody says. I think none of us have really come to grips with the ultimate question of what do we mean by life? What do we really mean by life? I don't think anybody's come to grips with that specific question. What is it you're looking for in the first place? It's as though you're saying, well, we'll know it when we see it, but we're not sure what it is we're looking for. That's a very strange thing to say for somebody who's been hunting now for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the straightforward fact is that at this point in the 20th century, we probably don't know what life is. Or we know a tree when we see it. We say that's a lie, that's easy. And we know a stone and say that's not life, that's easy. And aside from the things about viruses and things, there is a realm of things when where on Earth it's quite clear that's alive and that is life. And what we're not sure is if we saw other primitive things on Earth, on Mars, that behave differently, that was made differently, and I'm not talking about silicon, I'm just talking about differently, would we recognize it? Would we recognize them as life? Maybe it's not important whether we recognize it. Maybe it's important that we understand it. And later on we'll figure out whether we recognize it. Maybe this phenomenon that we're seeing, call it something else, call it somewhere between chemistry and biology. I don't have an idea. There may be a total chemical explanation, but suppose for the moment somebody says, there isn't enough chemistry to explain it. You haven't done your homework. You've gotten all the way a year from now, as you said, and somehow you still don't have enough blackboard chemistry or laboratory chemistry to explain the chemistry. Now what are you going to do? Now we're going to try to figure out what we've got, one way or another. Whether you say it's life or not, it's in the realm of definition or biology, call whatever you want. The point is that we may be into a realm of things that's hardly supernatural. It's just a part of nature we haven't coped with yet. Mm-hmm. Is it so surprising that we sit in this part of the 20th century thinking about a kind of chemistry that would have appeared almost mystical 50 years ago? And that is nothing to do with even Mars. But the kinds of chemistry that people are talking about now, DNA chemistry, would have sounded mystical. A person who would have had the knowledge 50 years ago that we have now would appear maybe dangerous.
Let me go back to the question he asked you at this point. I don't want the names, it's not essential. I don't want to put you in a box. But I think that
I'll call him Mr. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'll try to put him on the scale for you.
Okay. We're in a position where our readers are we're going to have to try to take all this and boil it down to what you're doing. Boil it down to what you think you found. Right. Will you find anything? And ultimately the question has to be asked of somebody who has an overview. how many people or how much is there, what do scientists believe they found, since they really can't tell us, or can't prove it to us, and we're discovering, or very indecisive about what they
I
have.
think two or three think there very well may be life that they found. 2 or 3 may feel we'll never know from this. You can't disprove it. Sometimes you can't disprove it. A large body of scientists who aren't even biologists have become interested in it and don't have much of it.
Is there anybody that feels that that everything is chemistry? That there is that the possibility of?
I'm afraid the answer to that is yes.
Okay. On balance, the more scientists that are intimately involved, I mean, I don't really care about the ones out there or somewhere else. The guys that are in this day to day.
At least one who thinks that it's chemistry.
Okay, I know who he is.
And there's at least one who thinks it's biology and can't prove it. Really, his heart thinks it. And in between those two extremes sit everybody else. Much of what's on the fence. Leaning slightly one way or slightly the other. And it sort of depends on what the data is like. It depends on not just the biology data. I can give you a personal view, because it's the only, you say overview, it's the only personal, it's the only view you can get from me. I've watched Mars emerge in the course of Levin and Viking as a planet that, despite this strange enigma of chemistry, feels much more comfortable. As a biologist, feels much more comfortable than I ever got to.
Comfortable with what?
Comfortable to, as an environment in which to study that thing that I've been trained to study, biology. That is to say, it's a planet where water's not unfamiliar. It's a familiar concept. It's not unusual. There was a time in which I used to work in this lab. They detected water on Mars. They detected water in the atmosphere. We didn't only detect water. We've got all the water you can dream of. There's certainly no shortage of water. At the Cape, there's a large debate among some of the biologists here. How little nitrogen would there have to be before you gave up the search for life? Because nitrogen being more important than water as one of the 4 cornerstones of the elements, unless you can find at least, in the numbers we're kicking out of them, a couple hundred parts per million. Unless there were at least that, then you give up the whole search for it. And there were scientists out at the Cape.
But you found it now, haven't you? Even though it's on the bottom line of...
That's the point I was going to make. What I was going to say is people...
That was disappointing, too, that with the importance of nitrogen, the equipment that you would set up there would
disappointing.
I mean, it was disappointing to me in that the impression I got from it was that there was still a doubt. Okay, what they were seeing was nitrogen because it was at the bottom level of the detection equipment. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
It wasn't nitrogen, was the krypton xenon. It was just barely detectable, but nitrogen was from the beginning, in the entry science. We didn't have to get down to the surface before we knew there was almost 2% nitrogen.